Uh, um, so how we relate to this concept of how we relate to the concept of care gives us a lot of information about whether we have a sense of isolation, separateness, or of interrelatedness. I often think of the biblical commandment, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And that carries a lot of weight too, because how do we relate to each other? How do we feel about our own personal self? The idea that we care for ourselves is weighted a lot of times for people, and it's not, people feel that, equate that with the idea of selfishness. But the truth is, if we don't care for ourselves in a healthy way, we are incapable of taking care of others. It's kind of a spiritual bypass. We do our learning and our understanding of everything through the only thing we can, our own bodies, our own energies, our own understandings. And it's part of our existence. It's not a task to take care of oneself. It's a sensibility that's part of our existence. And we need to recognize that in ourselves, and also to be able to open to it, to self-care. It's a spiritual bypass, because if we if we just know that we don't, for example, we have things we feel guilty about, or we think things that we neglected to do in our lives, or ways that people have told us that we're selfish, or that we should be more, do more for others, or whatever. However, we have incorporated some of that into our own being. What happens is that we jump over and we get into trying to escape from those probably mistaken beliefs about ourselves in order to take care of others, to reach out to others. And the reaching out is good, but it has no foundation in our basic being, in our whole being. And that's where we get into this idea, or this, what people call fatigue, caretaker fatigue, because we're neglecting the basic element that has to be there. And we're all interconnected, and we're all part of the same sphere of being, and we always will be. And we can't no more neglect to take care of ourselves than we would a person sitting next to us that we love or care for, that needs our help. So it's not a task. It's recognizing the need to care, it's embracing it, and it's really immersing ourselves in it, immersing ourselves in the idea of care and the practice of care. So we learn through our own experiences, and you could perhaps describe caregiving as the clearing away of the dust, the internal dust, the way we try to take care of the dust outside of ourselves, and the sweeping the floors and dusting the furniture. The internal dust muddies the waters and keeps us from clear seeing. So what we don't see is our own patterns, our own obstacles, and we are subject to being easily triggered by certain experiences or words. Or I was out at the beach this weekend, and I had this experience of last night going to a party that was my son and daughter-in-law's friends who were out at the beach also. It was a big family party, but it wasn't my family, it was this other family. And so I had the experience of just kind of watching how the interactions, the patterns that were going on. And I have no doubt that these family loves each other, but there are ways in which, because of their own reactivity, they're bypassing the real sense of love. There's a sense of kind of competition, jealousy, all these things that are probably born. These are all middle-aged people, but they grew up together and they have all these patterns. And I wasn't part of it, so I could observe without my own reactivity. But for us to care for ourselves means that really that willingness to sit and feel and take a look at what comes up with love and compassion and a real sensibility that's part of our existence. So, and when we do this investigation to clear the dust, when we do this inside look at our own taking care, when we pay close attention, it's important to remember that you're not going to get an answer. The final answer doesn't come. That's not what we're ever going to find, because this is an infinite, complex, and ever-changing mystery that we're part of. And we're only going to feel the peace and contentment when we're open to experience it as an ever-changing flow. So I've talked about this before, but we're in a conflict with ourselves, because our conditioning, what we've been learned through our upbringing and our experiences and our training and whatever we've done or not done, has taught us, given us an idea of who we're supposed to be. And who we truly are, authentically, it's really never that person. It's being a part of this ever-changing awareness. It's being a clear channel of experience. So we watch for the patterns and we notice and we step back and notice how they impact us, but they don't control us. And so it's the complexity is that even though they don't control us, they're not going to stop bringing up things. We're going to feel the ways in which our conditioning conflicts with our experience of the truth of what is. So compassion is a really important aspect of self-compassion and compassion for others, because everyone's going through the same process in some way or another. And so having a sense of compassion as we work to experience, work's not the right word, as we allow ourselves to experience things with open-heartedness, we get closer to this ability and more to just feel things as they are. So this investigation that we do in this self-care to see, what do I need? You know, what is it that I need this moment? What is it that will bring me closer to the sense of contentment in this moment? And it requires warmth, it requires friendliness, and it requires compassion. So so that we can surround ourselves with the best we have to offer ourselves. So that's one piece. You know, the Buddha, when he I don't know how many times I've done this in a talk, and I keep getting new versions of what the Buddha said as his last words when he was dying. There's lots of, we could probably make a list of 10 among us here of the things that the Buddha is said to have said. But this one is from Stephen Batchelor, and he says that the Buddha said, let's see, do I have it here? I'll read it to you. The Buddha said, conditions are subject to decay. Work out your salvation with care. Work out your salvation with care. And how we experience the truth that everything is subject to decay is really what is going to allow us to be in the moment, to be truly part of that. So Stephen Batchelor goes on to describe care in the sense that the Buddha used it as a configuration or of different interwoven elements, and that are grounded in an energetic state of contentment, kindness, and clarity. So I like those three ways to look at this, these elements that combine to experience, show that what care is about. It's about contentment, which is being at peace with what is, being at peace with the moment. And so that requires, when we're doing this investigation, what is it in my or your experience that interferes with contentment? It's probably some version of you want it to be different than it is. Because if you're content, you're open to being with the experience as it is. Doesn't mean that you don't take action or caring for the suffering of the world, but it also means that you realize, if you truly, the interconnectedness of all things, what's happening. You know, that expression, how do you know it's supposed to be happening? And the answer is because it is happening. So there's a kind of a contentment that comes with realization that this is what's happening. And it's the result of many factors. And so to be able to have that grounding and that level of contentment is what allows us to take a deeper look at what's going on, or the lack of contentment, to find what do we need in this moment to feel connected and at peace. And then this the kindness, if we're not kind to ourselves, of course, we're never going to be really truly kind to anyone else. So this deep level of kindness, which is a kind of compassion and kind of just warm-heartedness, that friendliness, not non-judgmental willingness to be with what even these thoughts, the mind is shameless, it'll think anything. So the fact that we have thoughts, but we don't own them. So again, if we're experiencing things as a flow that includes our ways in which we are conditioned and have embodied certain thoughts or feelings or fears, we can see them as just that, just something that we experience. It doesn't mean it's true. And then the clarity, the third piece of clarity. As I'm reading these and thinking about them at this moment, I'm seeing they have a strong connection or relationship to the Brahma Viharas, because they are in some ways products of our compassion and our kindness, as well as the action of them, and our willingness to and ability to be able to not only experience joy, but to feel joy in others' experience, requires a kind of clarity, and clarity. The more we experience clarity, the more we are able to experience all of the Brahma Viharas. And so another way of looking at this, there's a Tibetan Lama from the 12th century who defined care as a keen concern for engagement and letting go. So that, I think, kind of is a very good summary of that we become engaged through attention, awareness, through the practice of mindfulness, and we engage with our experience, and then we let it go. It's as Joseph Goldstein says, at the basic level, it's all about clinging or craving, or it's really the clinging even more than the craving. It's when we want to grab onto things, and every time we grab onto something, we're not allowing ourselves to be in the moment. We're not allowing ourselves to be open to this flow, to this interconnectedness. Just the act of grabbing onto something and not letting go creates that sense of separation, creates that barrier between the inside and the outside. I heard a description the other day in a talk I was listening to, and I think I'm not sure. I think it was Gabriel Maté that was saying it, but he was talking about the practice of trying to escape from our conditioning, or the parts of our conditioning that we feel shame about, or we feel we don't want anyone to see, or that we can't even acknowledge in ourselves, that we try to escape. And do all the things that each of us has our own little group of things, or there are things that we do to escape these feelings or thoughts or memories. And he said it's like every time we do that, we're just building a stronger cage that traps us with this monster of shame or fear, or the things that we carry around. And that seemed like such a good expression, way to describe it, because it's that feeling that, oh, here I am again with this feeling, this anger, this distrust, or whatever it is, and I'm trapped with it. It's once it has a hold, once that's grabbed onto us, or we've grabbed onto it, I don't know which happens first, we're stuck in this sense of isolation and all the component emotions that go with that. So part of taking care then is just opening to all of it with love and compassion. And the outcome is that when we truly care for ourselves, it's just a natural thing that we are going to reach out and care for each other. We're not going to be living in that sense of separation. So just to go back to that, so we live in a sense that we all do live to some extent in a separation and sense of separation, unless we've really gotten to a place where we no longer feel that we've at all trapped in a sense of self. So if we're beyond that sense of separation, then as the more we're beyond it, the more we can live in moments of connection and openness internally and externally, the more we don't have to worry about it anymore. Life just flows naturally, in all its beauty and all its difficulties and all its mystery. I mean, we are charged with this practice of seeing it for what it is, and not letting it distract us from living in the moment in this experience. We're so fortunate, all of us, that we have these practices that we've learned, that we've, to whatever extent, meditation and mindfulness have helped us to see the bigger truth of what is, at the same time as we acknowledge that we're imperfect, that we're just beings working on our survival, as well as our growth and openness to change. So I have a poem, but I think I'll open this up a little bit for some discussion, see what you would like to offer about your sense of what do you think it is to take care. And I think you can just unmute yourself and speak if you have I can't see everyone, so. Okay. And okay, Meryl. Just unmute yourself.
No, I was just saying, because you said you couldn't see everyone, and then all of a sudden you switched to the corner, so I was just waving.
Oh, hi. Okay. Jen.
Maeve, I have a request for a clarification, I think. Would you conflate or tie together conditioning and reactivity? Do you feel like those are pretty distinctly hooked?
Yeah, I do. I think so. Just conditioning in it is, some conditioning happens before we're even born. Some conditioning happens as a result of the way we are nurtured in the womb, but also some conditioning happens by virtue of the kind of structures and what our DNA has given us in terms of the way that our brains and bodies work and all. So there's that. And the rest of it, of course, is our experiences and from childhood on. And the earlier that we experience something that creates conditioning. So let's say we're neglected as infants, and it's pre-verbal. So there's a lot of things that happen when we're pre-verbal, positive and negative, the way that we're treated, and then so the conditioning creates these protective places in our hearts. Also, they connect a sense of self. They're what connects this whole idea of I'm this, that, or the other thing, all these things. So what happens is that is what we end up trying to protect. And reactivity happens when something challenges that sense of self and this guardedness that we have for that self that's been created. And so, yeah.
Thank you. And that also kind of hooks to clinging, right? Because we get attached to certain ideas and perceptions.
Yeah. I'm supposed to be this, or I believe this. And, a good example of that is in a family, some families more than others, there's a belief systems usually. I mean, they might be a religious belief system, they might be a racial belief system, they might be a belief system about how you cook the potatoes, that it can be all kinds of things. But to the extent that we feel loyal to that, then when someone challenges that and suggests that maybe there's a different way or there's something wrong with it, we immediately react because that it's not just the idea, but the loyalty to that family or that set of beliefs is challenged. It makes it hard to not to cling.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I really appreciate interweaving that like you did. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. It's a good one.
Yeah.
What else?
So Maeve, I have a question.
Yeah.
It's about how to unhook from the reactivity when it's just such a instant, almost chemical,
Yeah.
just
Yes,
reactive,
yes.
you know, it's just
Yeah.
beyond space of consciousness to shift it oftentimes, or at least for me. And then I'll notice it after the act has happened or whatever reaction has happened. And then I, you know, kind of can see it in retrospect, but to catch it in the dynamic when it's actually occurring with clarity, with compassion, with care is really, I mean, on the cushion or practicing.
Yeah, it's hard with when you're interacting. Somebody says something to you, and sometimes just the tone of voice and that they say it can be all kinds of things. So the first, you know, it's difficult, but the first thing of the practice is practicing to notice it in the body. What do you notice in your body when you're starting to get triggered, or you have something you're reacting, and where do you notice it? What do you notice? You probably already know this, but the sooner you notice it, the more you have an option to make a choice. Because when you notice it, well, as lots of us do, once you're really angry or fearful or whatever it is that comes up for you, that has kind of a hold on us. Those are kind of embodied emotions that work. That's what reactivity really is. But if you notice it at the very beginning, and at first, sometimes it's just doing that, just saying, oh, I can tell here I'm getting triggered. And you may not even choose to do something different at that point because you're not ready to do it, or you can't do it, or whatever. But the sooner you notice it and you say to yourself, I can walk away from this right now, you know. And sometimes it's a little hard, but and you can do it by saying, you know, I'm feeling something right now and I need a moment, or you can say that to yourself, or if you're in interaction with somebody else, and so you want to create a pause at that point in whatever way you can, and then that's where, after you've created the pause, that's where the friendliness and the clarity and all that come into play, and compassion, definitely, for yourself, because it hurts. And just the way, if you cut yourself, you know, you want to stop the bleeding as soon as possible, so that you can treat yourself with care. It's so much easier in some ways to treat a physical, external, or, you know, injury than it is to give yourself the compassion and care and take a pause to treat an internal reactive whatever, you know.
I was thinking about what you were saying
Um,
earlier about our experience,
uh-huh.
kind of what this, because I put my phone in it's in an old Victorian, so it's a big window that you're sitting in, and then I can see outside and I can kind of see the clouds and stuff. And so I was listening to you talk about, you know, our experience of we're not our body, or I had heard it, maybe I might be like meshing another lecture I listened to right before. But anyways, and so I had this moment of my ears kind of rang for a second, and then I didn't have any thought. And then I touched, you know, a little bit of peace, and I was like, oh yeah. And then I was like, oh, this place is so captivating, you know, and not necessarily captivating in such a positive way all the time for me lately. I've been definitely struggling. And what do I do to take care of myself? I'm still struggling so bad, but I would say that the Sangha and the teachings are the only thing that's keeping my head above water. And sometimes my nose is still dipping down, but it's what's keeping me up. And so back to the reactions of what Marcia was saying, it's like daily, because my family consists of two of us and one is much younger. And so it's daily a no. And then it's all about how what the other person to sidestep the no. And so go backing, and then I just kind of backtrack again for that moment I just had, right? Where it was all like a dream for a second. But yet then it's just so captivating. And then the reaction today was I already had to be at work. And then the belief systems are I need to be more nurturing. And I had already made breakfast. And actually I had even made a lunch. And like I had stuck around longer and avoided work. And not that anybody like deserves that or I need anything in return or anything like that, but like where I get my own self, like my expectations of my own self. And it's such madness sometimes. It's just so, and then I left and then I cried at work and then came back and then it started over again. I said no.
Yeah, it sounds like you're in a lot of time in an internal argument with yourself about what you should or shouldn't, or and that requires compassion. You're not going to be perfect. I heard this interesting talk the other day, and it was about expansion and contraction, and what this person said was everything is based on expansion and contraction. And when you think about it, the breath is expansion and contraction. The universe is expansion and contraction. We're expansion and contraction all the time. And that means that if everything was expansion, if we were just gaining and everything was getting great and we get bigger and expanding, eventually we'd burst, right? So it has to come back. And sometimes contraction and tightness can be a way to wake us up, to see what's there, what do you know? How do you know when you're contracted? It's when your muscles are tight, or when you feel a sense of tightness, or when you feel pain, internal pain. And that's kind of can be seen as a wake-up call. It's just like, it sounds like you're doing that, Meryl, saying no, but the no has to be that same thing I was saying to Marcia. It's like, no, I need to pause and breathe and give myself this moment to open to whatever is here, and it might be a thought that I'm not caring enough, or I should be doing that, or I should be doing that. And it's like, those are just thoughts. They're not necessarily true. What I need is what I can tell from this feeling of contraction in my body, headache, whatever it is, just to pause and breathe and allow yourself to be. And what we're doing when we do this work is we're breaking patterns. We have these patterns, and some of them are good and some of them are necessary, but some of them are patterns of destruction and or delusion. And so we have to just pause, and that's where wisdom and discernment come in. What is this? Is this something that serves to help me to see more clearly, to be at peace, to experience contentment? Or is this something that just creates more chaos for me?
Yeah, on that too. I mean, I understood. All right, I'm trying to understand more, not like maybe, completely. It's so interesting because so when I do the pause happens, and then the more strong statement comes at me, a stronger one, and sometimes I can avoid it and not react, and then a stronger one comes. and I don't know, it's such an interesting, because you already know that the stronger comment is to get the reaction, and sure enough, it's just so trippy that sure enough you're going to give the reaction, because when you said, oh, that was what it was earlier, when you said, and then notice what you feel, and I said, so I noticed what I felt during these interactions, and I was like, it immediately is protect, and I think
Mhm.
childhood stuff, I'm trying to, I'm assuming I'm still trying to, I don't know, but that's the immediate, like, protect. And and then the thought pattern is, you're 53, you should know better, you should be more mature, and why haven't you got it all together yet? Why haven't you got it all figured out? And other single moms can do it, and blah 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 blah. It's just, yeah, just on and on. But yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and you're welcome. And just to add to that a little bit, one of the things that I, as a therapist, that I would suggest to people when they were getting caught in whatever kind of reactive pattern that almost overwhelms, is because you do have wisdom at some level, and you have moments of wisdom, and you also have moments when you know that you feel the best that you feel, when you feel somewhat at peace or somewhat relaxed. And I suggest that you take a piece of paper and a big pen, and you print out a list of things that help to soothe you and to relax you. It might be to take a walk. It might be to have a cup of tea. It might be to take a nap. It might be to listen to a certain teacher on a podcast, whatever it is. So you write the list, and you're feeling this out of control stuff, and you go and you look at the list, and you pick the one at that moment, and you write them simply, because sometimes it's kind of like you're 53, but you're 6 or 4 in your mental state at that moment. And so you pick the thing at that level that will be you might think might be the most helpful, and do that. And so you learn to, that's a way of learning to develop another more healthy pattern.
Soothing is that's a really good word.
Yeah.
What would soothe me? That's right. Thank you for just the word, what would soothe me?
Okay. Anything else? Any other comments? Robert.
Okay. So you have been a therapist, right?
Yes.
Maybe you've answered this question already tonight, but I've found that I work closely with people. I'm not a therapist, but I'm, let's just say, an advisor.
Uh-huh.
And lately I've been overwhelmed with people's internal struggles that are related to what I'm helping them with, but is not core to what I'm helping them with.
Mm-hmm.
I love helping people, and I feel like it's my calling, but it's becoming increasingly harder for me to like leave it at home or leave it, work at work.
Yes.
Because how I help people is to really be empathetic and really be really feel it with them. And so me caring for them involves almost like self-harm in a way. Like, it's hard for me to separate that. And I hear you about pausing and the self-care, but it seems it's so intertwined. So as a therapist, how do you navigate working with clients all day long that are going through like, wow, really
Mhm.
intense stuff, and then be able to care for yourself as well?
Well, it's hard. It is hard. And certain times there's been times when it's been very hard, but for the most part, it's really built into what I've been talking about. Is that you have to value yourself and your needs just as highly, if not more highly, because people are you're not God. You're not going to be able to fix anybody. You can be compassionate. You can be a good listener. You can wish them well, take care, but you have to also pay very close attention again to what your needs are. And when you're feeling too much, you need to take some time off or do something that you know really feeds your own sense of well-being and peace, whatever that is. And you can't bypass that. You can't say, oh, there's too much I have to do. I can't take time to meditate or take a walk or go to the beach or whatever it is that, or just read a book, read a novel, whatever it is that soothes you or gives you some sense, or to investigate. The other part of that is to look at what is it about this particular interaction or sense that's got me feeling overwhelmed, and maybe if you have some space to do that, like take a day or two and just do something and spend a little time with that, you'll discover something in you that is protecting your own heart as what happens because of our own injuries at times. And you can be with that in a loving way in place of trying to fix what's going on for someone else. Does that make sense?
Sure does. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else before I read my poem here? And then we'll turn it over to Jen. Here's the poem. This is called Singularity by Marie Howe. And she wrote this for Stephen Hawking. Do you sometimes want to wake up to the singularity we once were? So compact, nobody needed a bed or food or money. Nobody hiding in the school bathroom or home alone, pulling open the drawer where the pills are kept. For every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. Remember? There was no nature, no them, no tests to determine if the elephant grieves her calf or if coral reefs feel pain. Trashed oceans don't speak English or Farsi or French. Would that we could wake up to what we were when we were ocean, and before that, to when sky was earth, and animal was energy, and rock was liquid, and stars were space, and space was not at all nothing. Before we came to believe humans were so important, before this awful loneliness. Can molecules recall it, what once was, before anything happened? No I, no we, no one, no was, no verb, no noun, only a tiny, tiny dot brimming with is, all, everything, home. Okay, Jen,
Maeve, thank you so much.
you're welcome.